Look, over here at the Fantasy Headliners, we're not trying to tell you what to do and how to handle your business. We're just trying to help you out with some safe picks. I mean, not everybody needs this advice, but some people do. I mean, have you ever noticed like when you go to the store and you buy certain items, there's some crazy warning labels out there. What about when you buy a chainsaw and it says, warning, do not hold wrong end of chainsaw? Most of us are like, duh. But you know there's some dude out there who's like, whew, man, I'm glad I read that label ahead of time. What about when you buy a blowtorch and it says contents may catch fire? Well, I hope so. That's the reason I bought the thing. But you know somebody out there just doesn't realize that. Seriously, there's a lot of stupid safety warnings on a lot of different products. But hopefully the list of players we have here for fantasy football are going to be some safe picks for you in 2020. What is going on, Headliner Nation? Jake, Fantasy Headliners. Hopefully everybody's doing well out there. And today we're talking about some of the safest running backs in the first 5 rounds of your fantasy football draft. Now, we don't want to get this confused, and this is kind of what this show right here is going to be about. So we're not talking about the best running back in a certain round here. We're talking about the ones that have the least amount of risk. Sometimes during your draft, you're forced to take a little bit of a gamble at times, but then you need to follow it up with something safe. That is what this show right here is going to be all about. This is not me telling you who the best running back is in that round. Don't overthink it. These aren't rankings. In my opinion, some of these guys may not have the highest ceiling in this round, but they may be the safest option if you're looking for a running back in these rounds. These guys provide that safety for you. Now, before I get into the list here, I got those 5 names. Just a quick reminder, our draft guide's for sale on our website, thefantasyheadliners.com, available for pre-order right now, scheduled to drop on June 30th. If we can get it done any earlier, we will, but it's almost 600 pages, so you don't want to miss out. If you're interested, head over to the website after this video. But for now, let's talk about 5 safe running backs for your 2020 fantasy football drafts. All right, so here we go, first round. Now, I could sit here and waste the next 5 minutes of your life or so and tell you to draft Christian McCaffrey or Saquon Barkley or Zeke Elliott. That would be a waste of time, though. I think you guys already know about those guys. So let's take them away from the equation and let's talk about who I believe is the next safest option here in the first round. It's going to be Derrick Henry, running back, Tennessee Titans. Now, once the big names are gone, you're going to have to choose between a few guys that have pretty high ceilings, but they also have a fair amount of risk. Are we really that worried that Darrynton Evans is going to come in and cause Derrick Henry to lose value? I mean, don't get me wrong. I like the skill set of Darrynton Evans, but he's there for third downs, and he may not even be on all of them, especially if they're short yardage. Derrick Henry hasn't had more than 24 targets or 18 receptions in a season over his career, so losing the passing work is really no big deal to him. Now, don't take too much to heart with June coach speak when you hear that Derrick Henry's usage could be, dependent on, the game script. That's obvious, right? If they're super trailing in a game, they're not going to rely on the run. That's the same thing for every team, not just the Titans. Henry was one of the reasons the Titans made the run they did late in 2019, and now they're just going to abandon that? No, I don't think so. He scored at least 1 touchdown in all but 4 games last season and never had less than 16 touches in a game. He led the league in carries, rushing yards, and yards created last year in 2019. But he also finished second among all running backs in breakaway runs, which are runs over 15 yards, in which he had 15 of them. He had 46 touches inside the red zone and 10 carries on the goal line. A true powerhouse with big play potential. Now, the loss of Jack Conklin to Cleveland, that hurts the right side of the offensive line. But 2020 first-round pick Isaiah Wilson should help. But ask yourself this question. Do you like A.J. Brown? Do you think Ryan Tannehill has a shot to ball out again? If you do, that only helps Derrick Henry. The offense goes through him. It did last year, and it will again this year. If they can thrive in the passing game, that's only going to help Derrick Henry. Even if the touchdown, regresses, those touchdown numbers regress slightly, he's still a super safe pick here in 2020. The ceiling it may be a little bit lower, but at least you know what you're going to get with Derrick Henry. And if you take him there mid to back half of the first round, you have yourself a super safe running back to start your draft. But what about the second round? Let's move on to the second round now. Who is the safest running back in my opinion there? It's going to be Josh Jacobs, running back of the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, I'm not going to lie here. An argument can really be made for almost all of the running backs here in the second round. A lot of great options. Maybe with the exception of Aaron Jones, who I do feel has a lot of risk. We also have Kenyon Drake, Austin Eckler, and Miles Sanders. 3 guys who I really love in 2020. However, I still think Josh Jacobs is going to be the safest option out of all of them. Now, you know we already like Josh Jacobs over here. We've talked about him a few times here this offseason. He really has all the tools to be a top running back in this league. As a rookie, he racked up 262 total touches and 1,316 total yards to go with 7 touchdowns. And really, that offense as a whole last year in Oakland was not good. Teams knew that Jacobs was one of the biggest threats, and he still produced. 10 of his 13 games that he played resulted in at least 17 touches. He broke off 13 runs of 15 yards or more, evaded on average 6.2 tackles per game, and created a whopping 463 yards on his own. All those numbers inside the top 10 among all running backs. He actually had a crazy 842 yards after contact. Not easily tackled by any means as Josh Jacobs, but now he should get some relief, some actual help, right? They drafted Henry Ruggs and Bryan Edwards, who we do like on the outside of the wide receiver position. That goes along with Tyrell Williams, Hunter Renfrow, balls to the Waller, Darren Waller. Those are some big upgrades compared to what they had last year. Now, news is coming out that Lynn Bowden, newly drafted Lynn Bowden, could be in a little bit of trouble. Still a little bit unclear, and I do not want to speculate. But if there is some issues there, that could only add more touches to that backfield and Josh Jacobs. Some people want to point out that re-signing Jalen Richard as a reason that Josh Jacobs won't get more pass work. But we aren't saying he needs huge volume in the passing game. As a rookie, he finished RB 18 despite only playing in 13 games and was only 17 points away from finishing inside the top 12, and he only did that with 27 targets. And he missed 3 games. I'll buy the improved offense in Las Vegas. I'll buy the opportunity of Josh Jacobs. Any bump in the passing game is going to be a benefit. I can definitely see this guy finishing inside the top 12. And right here in the second round, one of my safest picks. What about the third round? Now, there's a reason, these guys that fall to the third, the fourth, the fifth, there's a reason they've fallen that far, right? None of them are without any risk. We just have to take the most limited risk. And in my opinion, in this round, it's Leonard Fournette, running back Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, before everybody rushes to the comment section to tell me how much they hate Leonard Fournette, just a reminder, we're talking about safety and we're into the third round. A round in which Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Chris Carson, and Melvin Gordon are all there. In my opinion, I'd say Leonard Fournette is the one we know the most about their current situation. Everyone loves to talk the offseason news and blow it out of proportion. Apparently, Chris Thompson is now the savior in Jacksonville if you read all the headlines and follow everybody on Twitter. Now, I get that the Gruden-Thompson connection from Washington is there, but Chris Thompson hasn't had more than 117 total touches in a season, ever. That season, he had 68 carries and 49 receptions. Will he have a role? Sure. Will Fournette lose some targets in the passing game? Yeah, probably he will. Does he absolutely kill the value altogether of Leonard Fournette? No. Heck no, he doesn't. It was the TDs that really hurt Fournette in 2019. But despite only scoring 3 touchdowns, he still finished as running back 9 in half-point PPR. So let's do a little experiment here. Let's just say that Leonard Fournette loses around 40% of his passing work to Chris Thompson. That drops his targets to about 60, receptions to about 46, and receiving yards to about 313. That's a difference of 36 half-point PPR points. Last year, take away those 36 points, he still would have been running back 17. Now, if you think he has a chance to fall into the end zone another time or two, that just puts him higher up on that list. He's in a contract year in which I'm sure he won't be back in Jacksonville, especially after their bad blood there. It's a team that's not competing for a Super Bowl, so why not run him into the ground before he leaves? Currently going in the third round and a role that we know a lot about. Given the other options that are in this round, I still think Leonard Fournette is the safest option. He's going to get you over 200 carries, right, in between 50, 60 targets. The touchdown upside will be there if they can get down there inside the 5-yard line. We know that that's going to be his work. He's not going to lose goal line carries. In my opinion, he's still the safest option here inside the third round. But now let's move on to the fourth round. Where are we going here? A name that we've talked about quite a bit on this channel in the past. It's going to be Mark Ingram, running back, Baltimore Ravens. Real quick, before I talk about Mark Ingram, though, we're talking about safety. So this just seems like the perfect point to talk about today's sponsor, which is going to be Manscaped.com. If you haven't heard about Manscaped before, you've probably never watched a YouTube video because their ads are all over the place. It's a great product. They've sponsored us here for the year, and I want to make sure that I give our discount out to you, the viewer, if you're wanting to try it. If you haven't tried it, I got a box of it sitting right there behind me, some great products, some funny campaigns, and really, it's pretty safe. I mean, you can do some work with that lawnmower and not have to worry about nicks, scratches, cuts, whatever. It's all good. So make sure you head over to manscaped.com. Use our promo code Headliners, all caps at checkout. Receive 20% off your order. Your balls will thank you. But now, let's talk about some Mark Ingram. Now, I just talked about Mark Ingram in depth in a video like just last week, so I'm not going to sit here and just beat a dead horse all over again and repeat all those same stats. If you're interested, you can go over there on the channel. It's a thumbnail that I believe he's even on the cover of. It was just last week. The guy is in a round with Le'Veon Bell, Todd Gurley, and James Conner. Really, his only competition for safety here inside the fourth round was Devin Singletary, who I really do like and I think is very underrated here in 2020. But as for Bell, Gurley, and Conner, I think we can all agree there's quite a bit of risk there with those names. I mean, Mark Ingram, he's the running back one on the best rushing team in the NFL. They have one of the best defenses in the NFL. They should have a lot of late leads where they're relying on running the ball late in the fourth quarter. Their offensive line, it's above average. Add in the fact that he should once again have a lot of scoring opportunities and doesn't really need huge volume. I don't understand why people don't love Mark Ingram. He's not going to be a huge PPR guy, but when we're looking for that safe floor, maybe you went with a wide receiver or two early in your draft. Mark Ingram is about as safe a running back two as you can possibly get right here in the fourth round. In my opinion, the safest option there. What about the fifth round now? Let's move on to the fifth round. And this is where everybody throws up in their mouth because the name that I mentioned is David Johnson, running back of now the Houston Texans. So if Leonard Fournette didn't really irritate you, you may be irritated with hearing the name David Johnson, but hold up just a second. There's not a ton of options in the fifth round to choose from. Right now, there's only two running backs with a fifth round ADP, David Johnson and Jonathan Taylor. Now, being that we're all sitting over here speculating on what type of role Jonathan Taylor will have, how involved will Marlon Mack be, how involved in the passing game is Nyheim Hines, it really makes his situation a little bit more risky because there's so much unknown. But what does David Johnson have left? Sure, he looked bad the end of 2019, but he started off pretty hot. He was actually the running back 8 through the first 7 weeks of the season. He has very little competition for carries in this backfield, and the Houston wide receiver group isn't necessarily known for staying healthy. Add in the fact that David Johnson looks healthy this offseason in all of his workouts, and Houston, they really utilize their running backs. He's a great value here in the fifth round. Last year, Carlos Hyde had 255 touches in this exact same role. Why not get that amount of work to David Johnson here in 2020? Entirely possible. Now, I hate to use the word safe when we talk about David Johnson, but given the fact that it's fifth round, the risk is minimal. He could be your running back 3 at that point. The potential ceiling is huge, and even though there's some risk there, at least we know a little bit more about his situation and what his role is going to be than we do of that of Jonathan Taylor. Now, Jonathan Taylor may be a top 10 running back next year in this league. Not saying that he may be a top 10 running back to end 2020. However, to start the season, there's just so many unknowns. I don't know if I'm willing to risk it in the 5th round. I may, gamble on a David Johnson instead. But those are 5 running backs right now in the first 5 rounds, one for each round based on their ADP, who I feel is safe. We did a video like this last year for wide receivers, and if it wasn't for the freaking Adam Thielen injury, I would have maybe nailed all 4 or 5 of them. It was a great show, so I like doing these types of shows. It kind of makes you think outside the box a little bit. I think so many times people get so caught up with what their potential is and what their ceiling is that sometimes we end up with a bunch of players with super high ceilings but super low floors, and it kind of hurts our overall fantasy teams. You still need those safe plays here every once in a while, especially in 2020. It's no different, but we want to be interactive. So let me know down below what you think. Are there other running backs in these rounds that you would rather have? Quite possibly you may. And I'm not saying that I dislike the other running backs that are out here. They just have maybe a little bit more risk or more unknown. That's what it's all about. Trying to find that safety here in 2020 will be key to a lot of fantasy football owners, and I'm anxiously awaiting to see what you guys put down below in the comment section. Should be a lot of fun. Look forward to the interaction. Once again, go check out the draft guide on the website, fantasyheadliners.com. It'll be done shortly. We're definitely going to be looking forward to releasing that bad boy. Had a lot of great feedback last year. Expect the same this year. Looking forward to it. So hopefully you guys have a great rest of your week. We'll talk to you later.